listening to
Sound.
Insightful.
Bible teaching.
For a
Meaningful.
For a meaningful Christian walk.
Topic tonight, New Jerusalem. We could spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on, and we'd barely scratch the surface. So we're going to do it in 30 minutes. We're going to see from kind of an aspect. You ever do a jigsaw puzzle? Pretty deep stuff, right? Ever try to do one without looking at the picture? Ever try to do a really hard one without looking at the picture? You can do it, but you know what makes it a lot easier? Looking at the picture. So if you've got a view of something, it gives you a better idea of knowing what you're doing, or what you're trying to accomplish. It's that way with building anything. You know, if you're given a kit, what is this thing supposed to look like? So we want to see, this semester we've been, actually every week, we've been seeing the revelation of God's building from Genesis, and now we're to Revelation, to the very end of the book of Revelation. So this is the end. The Bible is not an incomplete book, to be continued, cliffhanger. No, the Bible has an end. Of course, it stretches on into eternity, but God gets what He's after. So He's after a building. So we should be able to see what that building looks like. But first, what I'd really like to do, and I'm not going to do, it'd be really good if we could just sit in a circle and me not like give a message, but just have some fellowship together. Because I got a question, and I don't want to bring it up for discussion because we'll go way off on a tangent. But heaven, you all know heaven, right? That's where God dwells. What does it look like? Again, I mean, we could solicit answers, but just consider yourself. What does heaven look like? Because I can deflate almost every answer you give. Because most of the answers, I'll give you the punchline right now. The Bible does not describe heaven. Now, are there mansions in heaven? Some people say there's golf courses. That's just their imagination. It's like, I'm going to spend eternity somewhere, it better be fun. I tell you what, even if with eternity, I don't care how much you love golf, you'll get tired of it. So all the physical things that we enjoy, my puppy's going to be there. I don't know where puppies go. But I do know some things. So Jesus said in John chapter 14, right? He says, I'm going to my Father to prepare a place for you, right? And in the King James Version, it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Everybody thinks, okay, I'm going to have a heavenly mansion. That is a terrible distortion of what that verse means. First, the word in Greek does not mean mansion. It just means a dwelling place. And he's not talking about heaven. He's talking about the Father's house, which is the church. So he's going to prepare a dwelling place for us in the church. He's going to make his dwelling with us. In Luke 16, there's a story about Lazarus and this rich man. And they both die. And one, this beggar named Lazarus, he's apparently in a very pleasant place with Abraham and just kind of enjoying things there. Meanwhile, this rich man who had a lot of good things in his life we don't know exactly what it's like. It says he's in torment because of the flames. Well, of course, this must be hell, right? It is, except both of them are in hell. Hell is an English word. The Greek word is Hades. The Hebrew word is Sheol. And this is just where the dead people go. It's temporary. It's not permanent. The Lord Jesus, when he died, according to the creeds that are accurate, he descended into hell or into Hades. That's where dead people go. He overcame that. He resurrected from the dead. So that description is not proper, if you want to talk about that being heaven. And even it doesn't have much description. It's just like there's no flames and Abraham is there. And apparently there's some water. There's not much of a description. Paul in 2 Corinthians says that he was caught away to the third heavens. The third heavens is what we call, our concept of heaven. In the Bible, there's the first heaven, which is like the air, the second heavens, which is like outer space. Third heavens is where God dwells. No description. It just says, I heard things that can't be uttered. Ezekiel saw a vision. Heavens were open. So he saw something, but the only description is of the throne of God. In the book of Revelation, there's some scenes from heaven. And again, it's all centered around the throne of God. So the one really a little bit detailed description of something is what people generally, and the poets and the artists in the Renaissance, if they want to paint a picture of heaven, if I said paint a picture of heaven right now, what does it look like? I mean, your imagination, you could make golf courses and swimming pools, I don't know, whatever you like. But they took a description of something from the Bible, and it's got pearly gates. Supposedly St. Peter is there. In the Bible, there's no even inkling that that's the case. He's there letting people in or not letting people in. It's got your mansion. It's got golden streets. There's a detailed description. But the problem is, it's not heaven. It's the New Jerusalem. But then people might say, well, that's just another name for heaven. It's the New Jerusalem. That's another name for heaven. So we're going to see tonight, I hope, there is a place. I'm not saying there is no heaven, but heaven is not our final destination. Our final destination is the New Jerusalem. And the New Jerusalem is a very, very, very spiritual, interesting, mysterious place. Even though there's a description, I would challenge you to draw it. It even says like this is so long and that's so high. Anyway, the dimensions don't match. Just try it. You'll realize how difficult. The book of Revelation, very beginning, John says these things were, all the visions he saw, they were made known by signs. And a sign is a symbol with spiritual significance. Remember that. The New Jerusalem is a sign. It's interesting, it's like, it's real. It's not just imaginary, but you got to look into the meaning of every part and see what it symbolizes and what it means. And we are not going to do that tonight because we do not have time. But maybe in the summer. Maybe. Okay. This is the progressive revelation of God's building. So a little bit of review. You got two ends of the Bible. You got Genesis is the very beginning, very end is book of Revelation. And it's interesting, the first two chapters of Genesis correspond with the last two chapters of Revelation. The one is like the beginning, the initiation, and the other one's like, is anybody here graduating? Okay, yeah, we got some graduating. 4 years ago or 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever it was when you started, you came in knowing not that much. Now you're going to graduate. There's an end to this process. Of course, this will be a beginning for the rest of your life, but you'll reach the culmination. So the book of Revelation is the consummation of all God's building. So I've got a few things here. You can see them at the beginning and you can see them at the end. So the first verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:1, you know what it says? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When did he create them? When was that? I don't know. It's in the beginning, right? They've been around a long time. We can debate about that another time. So he created the heavens and the earth. Revelation chapter 21, that's the second to the last chapter, verse 1, says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and first earth passed away, and the sea is no more. I shared about this one time, a long time ago in a conference. I was just being a little contrary. People want to save the whales. The sea is no more. Where are the whales going to live? I don't know. I don't know if there'll be whales. I don't know anything. But there's going to be a new heavens and new earth. I don't know if that's like everything. In Peter it says everything we burned up. Or you could just say all the negative things have been dealt with, so everything is just renewed. Anyway, so you got a new heaven and a new earth. Now, in the beginning, in Genesis chapter 2, you all know these stories, I hope. God planted a garden in Eden, and he put the man, right then there's just man, just Adam. And out of the ground he caused to grow every tree, good for food, as well as a tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then there's a river going forth from Eden to water the garden. So you've got the tree of life and you've got a river. Revelation 22, last chapter in the Bible. What? He showed me a river of water of life, bright as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb in the middle of its street. The street here is in the New Jerusalem. And on this side, on that side of the river, was the tree of life, producing 12 fruits, yielding its fruit each month, and the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. So in eternity, we got the river of water of life. And at the source is the throne of God. You ever been up to, Lake Itasca? Source of the Mississippi? There's a source. I've never seen a river that has a throne as the source. So this is an unusual river. It's very significant that it says it's coming from the throne of God. And again, we're not going to get into it. But it's very significant. And with this river, there's the tree of life. The tree of life has continued since the beginning. Actually, Christ is the tree of life. What else do we have? Okay, Genesis chapter 2. You've got gold. This is verse 12. The gold of that land is good. This is in Eden. And it's got something called bdellium and onyx stones. Onyx is a precious stone. Bdellium is a kind of a pearl, but it's made from trees. So like a pearl is made by an oyster. You all know that. This is something, I don't know what kind of tree, but the tree is wounded, some sap comes out, and this hardens. And so it's like a pearl. So that's what bdellium is. So that you've got gold and pearls and precious stones. Remember that. Now, skip down to Revelation 21, and it's down at the bottom of the first page. It says, the building work of its wall, this is a description of the New Jerusalem, was jasper. Jasper is a precious stone. And the city was pure gold, like clear glass. I don't know what kind of gold that is. I've never seen clear gold. But anyway, it's pure gold. But it's got a wall, it's made out of jasper, which is a precious stone. And the foundations were adorned with every precious stone. And it lists 12 different kinds of precious stones. Well, this city, it's a city, it's got a wall, but you know what you need if you've got a wall? You got to have some gates, some doors, you got to have some entrance, otherwise you can't get in. This city, from the physical description, like it's a square, actually it's a cube, but one length of it, I think it would stretch like from Los Angeles to Dallas, Texas, if we went by physical distance. So it's got a big foundation, big wall. So you need some gates. What are the gates? It says the gates were 12 pearls. So what we've got here, we've got gold, we've got pearls, and we've got precious stones. In Genesis, you had all these building materials. And I think if you were going to build something, you wouldn't say, let's get some gold so I can build a house. That wouldn't be what you'd look for. But this is what God builds with. And he has pearls for the entrance. Another thing is just very, very significant that these are pearls. Briefly, this denotes the redemptive work of Christ. So the entrance into the city is through the death of Christ. We're redeemed. Otherwise, there's no way in. And it's adorned. When you look at it, you see precious stones. The city itself is pure gold. That's quite a city. Now, I have a few verses before that. Because you could look at it and say, okay, somewhere there's this city, New Jerusalem, right? And it already exists, right? Actually, it doesn't. It's kind of not yet. It's under construction. Hebrews 11, I got a couple verses here, talking about Abraham. Abraham was one who, he just lived by faith and he followed God. But then in verse 10 it says he said he lived in tents, while he eagerly waited for the city which has the foundations, whose architect and builder is God. He was waiting for the New Jerusalem. Probably didn't understand it that well, but he knew there's going to be a city with foundations. Then in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, we've covered all of these things before. Chapter 3, I got a couple verses here. For another foundation no one is able to lay besides that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. The foundation, you need a foundation to build something on. So our foundation for this building is Jesus Christ. And it says, if anyone builds upon the foundation gold, silver, precious stones, and then wood, grass, and stubble, this is going to get tested by fire. If you build with wood, that will burn. But these precious materials, which are something divine and spiritual, will remain. So the builder here, on the one hand it's God, on the other hand it's us. This is talking about us. So how you build today, the Lord is going to take account of that. So if I told you I'm building a house, does that mean the house is done? It might be pretty close to done. But if I said I am building my house, that means it's still being built. If I say I have built my house, that means it's done. The Lord Jesus said, I will build my church. So this is the view. The New Jerusalem, I would say, is still under construction. And we are participants in it. This isn't something that we're waiting God to give us. In our life, we are building. Right now, you're building. You might not feel like you're building. When you wake up in the morning and you turn your heart to the Lord and just say something like, Lord Jesus, I love you today, you're building. When you ignore the Lord, you're not building. when the Lord tells you, turn to your classmate and say, do you know Jesus? You're building. We can build all of these things, these spiritual things, these precious things. We are building the New Jerusalem today. There's more to it. We'll get done. Okay. We covered this, the first message, I think. What was the first thing God built in the Bible? What? Eve, right? That's right. Genesis 2:22. He took a rib out of Adam, and it uses that word. It says Jehovah God built the rib that he'd taken from man into a woman. So the first bride was built. Adam was created, but the bride came out of Adam. Okay. So the bride, something out of Adam, and God built it into the bride. We know from the New Testament, actually the whole Bible, Jesus likened himself to the bridegroom. He says, I'm the bridegroom. And different places, I've got one verse here. 2 Corinthians 11:2. It says, I betrothed you to one husband to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. The you there is not the you individually. It's the you corporately. It's the believers, it's the church. So the church is betrothed to Christ as the bride. Then if you look at Revelation 19, that's not one of the last two chapters, but it's almost the last two chapters. But this is the very end of the age. This is after all the judgment and all the negative things has happened. And it says, let us rejoice and exult, and let us give the glory to him. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready. It was given to her that she should be clothed in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteousnesses of the saints. Again, saints is just the New Testament word for the believers. I see Saint Shane there, Saint Eduardo, Saint Divine. Huh? What? Santo, okay. He understands me. So the righteousnesses are our righteous deeds, our righteous acts. And we're clothed with these. Now the key thing, it says the marriage has come because the wife has made herself ready. That means she was not ready before. Just like the city is being built, it hasn't been completed yet. At one point in time, the bride will be ready. And we can participate in that because corporately, the church will be the bride of Christ. So daily, we need to be doing righteous acts. Of course, not in ourselves. We need to be one with the Lord in all the things that we do. Eventually, then the bride makes herself ready. Then in chapter 21, it makes this very clear. It says, I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. So, you see a city. You know, we're here in Minneapolis. Look downtown. That's a city, right? Would you ever say that's a bride? Yeah, I don't even know how you'd make that connection. But this says it's prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. So it's like, okay, maybe it's like a bride, beautiful or something. And later in the same chapter, one of the angels says, come here, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. So we're going to make this very clear. And he says, he carried me away in spirit unto a great and high mountain and showed me what? The holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. So this is the holy city. What is it? Bride of Christ. In the Bible, what is the bride of Christ? What is the church? Us. So there's like a mathematical property, right? A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. What is that called? What? Okay, yeah. You all hear that? He's paying attention. That's good. Maybe you got an exam. So if the church is the bride of Christ and the New Jerusalem is the bride of Christ, what does that mean the church is? The New Jerusalem. If we are the church and the church is the New Jerusalem, what does that make us? Is the New Jerusalem ready yet? Is the bride prepared yet? This is the only point I want you to get tonight. This city, again, it's got a physical description, but all the physical descriptions are symbolic. The pearl gates, which is you, and the apostles, and the precious stones. You know, we need to build with gold. And 1 Corinthians says gold and silver. Silver and pearl both denote the redemptive work of Christ, so it's the same thing. So we need to build on the redemptive work of Christ. We need to build with gold, the divine nature. We need to build the precious stones, which is a transformative work of the Spirit. This is the preparation of the bride. This is the construction of the holy city. You got it? There was, there is a brother, this is not here, years ago, and he was looking to join a church, and so he was going to join, I won't say which one, there's nothing wrong with them, very mainstream denomination. And he had to take a class to join the church. I don't know if he had to take an exam, and what would he do if he failed the exam? I don't know. But anyway, I saw him, and he had a worksheet. And it wasn't difficult stuff. It's kind of like, basic Bible knowledge. And then it might have like a question, but then have like a little explanation or something. And the question was, what is the bride of Christ, or the wife of the Lamb? And the answer they gave was heaven. Why would they say something like that? Because their concept is that the New Jerusalem is a description of heaven. The New Jerusalem is not a description of heaven. I'm not saying that there's no gold in heaven. I don't have any idea what heaven looks like. The Bible doesn't say. I know what the throne of God looks like, because the Bible does describe that. There's a rainbow, and he looks like, anyway, we won't get into that. The Bible does say something about that. The Bible says something about a lot of things. This city, on the one hand, we got to be somewhere, but I don't even know what we're going to be. When Jesus resurrected, was he flesh and blood? Huh? You said yes? You said no. You says yes. You say what?
Well,
Flesh and bone. But anyway, yeah.
which one?
Huh? Which one? After he resurrected?
Like, immediately after officially touches runes, or when he ascended on?
He went in and he says, "Do you have anything to eat?" And they gave him some fish. If he's a spirit or a ghost, he wouldn't even be able to hold it. It would just like. And why would he want to eat anything? And then, what's his name? Thomas said, "I won't believe unless I put my fingers in his hands and in his side." And he did. And it's like, you're really Jesus. It's like you couldn't recognize him? He walked with two of his disciples quite a ways. These are his disciples. They didn't recognize him until he made himself known. Then he disappeared. His disciples, other ones, they're in the room. The doors were closed. He appears in front of them. And they can touch him, and he says, give me some fish. Is he physical? Is he spirit? I don't know. Is he recognizable? Yes. Is he recognizable? No. I can't figure it out. I don't need to figure it out. So what are we going to be? I don't know. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 says we will have a glorified body, a heavenly body. And we don't know what it will be like. We'll find out. This holy city isn't just like a dwelling place for us. It's actually the song we sang. We're incorporated with God. We and God are one. And if you look at the description of the city that we are building now by preparing the bride, again, this is symbolic, it's a sign, but it's real. There's something, John saw it. Again, these are kind of mysterious things, but I want to share this because this is the picture on the puzzle. We're putting the puzzle together. Any task you do, if you don't know why you're doing it, what is the goal, it's really hard to continue. Why am I doing these exercises? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? I don't understand. I'm just doing what I'm told. But if you realize right now you're preparing the bride, right now you're building the holy city, it makes a difference. Then our daily life matters in a way that it never really mattered before. If I share the gospel with a friend of mine, or a stranger, or an enemy, is it just so I can get some points in heaven? No. I want to build the holy city. I want to build. You know, I've got a verse there. It says, we're living stones. What do you use stones for? Well, at that time it says we're being built together into a dwelling place of God. So, let's be clear. I'm not talking about heaven. I'm also not saying there's no such thing as heaven. I'm not saying anything that heaven is like. All I'm saying is there is this city called the New Jerusalem. It is the end result of the growth and development of the church. This is what God is after. This will be the bride of Christ. Actually, this is what the Lord is waiting for when he comes back. He's coming back for a wedding. He's not coming back just randomly. When the bride is prepared, then he'll say, now's the time to come back. There's more. Again, we don't have time to get into it. There's more description, the walls, the gates. The Lamb is the lamp. God is the light. There's okay, if I get into this, it'll be a can of worms. So I'm going to stop here. There's so many really, really, really interesting things.